Hey guys, so you ready for it? Today's September 25th, 2023, 6:58 a.m. Central Time. This is Bidenomics. I thought Bidenomics was supposed to be a good thing. And anyone out there who might be a Biden fan or just one of my subscribers who thinks there's something positive going on in this economy, please let me know what the fuck that would be. Beside the point, whoever coined that phrase in this administration is obnoxious, and I'd love to strangle him. Anything attached to the Biden name is not going to be good, okay? So, yeah, let's put that into the mix of political terminology. Anyway, there's 3 articles I'm going to go over and have some commentary and stuff. Fox Business is where I got them. If you don't like Fox, I don't know what to tell you. Fox Business, I like. Fox Mainstream Media News Network is a little different. But Business is really cool. It gives you facts, quotes from people, and generally don't have too much opinion in them, which is what I want. So it says, Fed's wall of worry, government shutdown, UAW strike, student loan repayments, and $90 oil. Which, by the way, well, when we get into the oil part, I'll tell you in a second. It says, anyway, Federal Reserve Chairman Jay Powell had a press conference last week talking about whether they were going to raise rates. Based on what I heard from him, because it's always like you got to dissect what this motherfucker says, they're not going to be lowering rates anytime soon, probably not till the end of next year, and it depends on how everything goes. So anyway, he said this, quote, "It's the strike, it's the government shutdown, resumption of student loan payments," which I hadn't thought about, higher long-term rates. Gee, I don't know. Loans for fucking houses right now are almost 8%. Oil price shock. You know, there are a lot of things that you can look at, so what we try to do is assess all of them and handicap all of them. Good luck with that. And it says, and ultimately, though, there's so much uncertainty around these things. So obviously, Bidenomics is working, right? Which is why the Fed is keeping rates high and not even considering lowering any of them until the end of next year. Which, by the way, last month, this month, inflation has gone up. It has not gone down. So congrats, Biden. Anyway, the UAW strike, which is actually another article that I have up, it says began September 15th. Blah, blah, blah. Supposedly, it has cost the economy $1.6 billion in the first week. It says losses have been concentrated in Michigan, Ohio, Missouri, Kansas, Indiana, and Alabama, where shuttered plants and laid-off workers are located. They anticipate that a longer strike will spread losses to more assembly and supplier plants and to dealers and customers across the United States. These are the stocks for Ford, GM, and Stellantis. I think that's like something from a video game. Anyway, let me pull that up about the UAW. President Biden plans Michigan trip to support UAW workers as strike expands to 20 states, which, by the way, originally, the UAW, I don't even know what you'd call the union heads, okay, their main dude, president, I have no idea, said they didn't want any support from politicians, including the retarded Democrats that were actually out there on the picket lines with them. If you are outside on a picket line and a Democrat shows up, you are on the wrong side of history, motherfucker. So think about what you're doing. I think this strike is absolutely absurd what they are asking for. They are asking for almost a 40% raise. They are asking for living expenses. They are asking for pension type shit. They're asking for a 32-hour work week but getting paid for 40 hours. It's absurd. It's absurd. So here's the deal with this, right? It says Tuesday, so tomorrow, Biden said, "I'll go to Michigan to join the picket line and stand in solidarity with the men and women of UAW as they fight for a fair share of the value they helped create. It's time for a win-win agreement that keeps American auto manufacturers thriving with well-paid UAW jobs." Which, by the way, is absolutely ridiculous, because one of the reasons these people are having problems, meaning the 3 main titans, if you will, is because of his EV agenda. And probably like half of these workers won't even exist in a few years if they keep pushing this EV shit, because it's considerably easier to build an EV compared to a combustion engine vehicle. So they won't need as much labor. And obviously, as things go on, automotive and AI and robots and all that bullshit, whatever you would like to call it, okay, will also take these people's jobs. So anyway, it says workers walked out of 38 parts distribution centers operated by General Motors and Jeep and Ram owner Stellantis in 20 states. Ford has met some of the union's demands and avoided more strikes, which is ironic because Ford did not like, not the company, the man, did not like unions and thought unions were a way of government controlling business. So he stayed away from them as much as he could anyway, until FDR went ahead and created the union situation. But he paid people, black and whites, at the time, that was actually pretty controversial, obviously, the same amount of money. It was very generous at the time. It was $5 a day. And he even built his own fucking hospital for his employees' healthcare needs. So Ford generally is pretty, has been, I don't know if it is now, but has been pretty generous. So them making some sort of concessions, I'm not surprised about. But if Ford was here today, he would probably be rolling over. Well, he is rolling over in his grave. But if he was here today, he'd probably be an angry little dude. It says, quote, "We've made some real progress at Ford. We still have some serious issues to work, though. But we do want to recognize Ford is showing that they are serious about reaching a deal. At GM and Stellantis, it's a different story." End quote. Says, GM and Stellantis so far have rejected union proposals for cost of living increases, profit sharing, oh, I forgot about that one, job security. Yeah, like you can fucking guarantee a job. Okay, especially these days. Quote, "are going to need some serious pushing." GM said it presented 5 historic offers, which cover wages, job security, calling the latest move unnecessary. Today's strike escalation by the UAW's top leadership is unnecessary, GM said. The UAW leadership is manipulating the bargaining process for their own personal agendas. It's not the first time I've heard that, because actually the UAW came out and said that their workers are not getting a living wage, okay? Which, depending on who you speak to, depends on what you think a living wage is, especially in different states. Like, you know, it's obviously costs more to live in New York than it does here in Missouri. So, anyway, which is a lie, because a lot of the GM employees actually make over $82,000 a year. And that is a living fucking wage. I'm sorry. Currently, stuff sucks, okay? So yeah, you're gonna have to cut back on your little conveniences and your luxuries and shit like that, like everyone else. So I think $82,000 is quite a living wage for a single human being. Anyway, beside the point, Stellantis on Thursday said it made a, quote, "very competitive offer," end quote, to the union, which pays all current full-time hourly employees between $80,000 and $96,000 within 4 years and 7 months, allowing for, quote, "workforce stability," end quote, during that time. I like that right there, during that time, because God knows where we're going to be in 5 years with, again, the EV push. According to Stellantis, the UAW union hasn't responded to the offer. Oh, you haven't responded to the offer. So obviously you guys are very responsive. Okay, whatever. Moving on. Oil. So with this situation right here, I actually have a bet going with one of my subscribers for 20 bucks. Anyone else who wants to bet against me, let me know. I would love your $20. I basically said that Biden will absolutely dip into the oil reserve, yet again this year. So prior to December 31st, he will dip into the oil reserves. Guarantee it. So if you want to bet against me, let me know. I'd love your 20 bucks. Says anyway, one of the newer obstacles for the Fed, crude prices have topped $90 plus per barrel last week and have risen 15% year to date. Prices at the pump are creeping up, $3.86 per gallon versus $3.68 a year ago. Ooh, what is that, 20 cents? It says as OPEC and Russia cut production, the U.S. is dealing with less supply, driving prices higher. The consumer index on August, reported this month, saw gasoline rise 10.6%, overall energy 10.5% month over month from July. Congratulations. Doing great in that energy section. Quote, energy prices are very important for the consumer. This can affect consumer spending. It certainly can affect consumer sentiment. I mean, gas prices are one of the biggest things that affects consumer sentiment. It really comes down to how persistent, how sustained these energy prices are. End quote, said Powell during his Q&A last week. Something he forgot about, besides the consumer sentiment, oil, energy, everything drives, runs everything. Energy runs a country. Period. End of story. That's it. End of story. Anytime oil prices go up, everything goes up. It costs more for diesel trucks to run supplies back and forth, raising prices. It costs money for these tractors and these farmers to be using their equipment on their farms. It costs more money for manufacturing. It costs more money for everything, not just the consumer. It's across the board. And if it's general energy prices, you're talking about overhead for all these companies, including your retailers. So this is a big deal. Why this motherfucker is so against energy, no idea, other than his climate change, which fine. If you want to get away from fossil fuels, you never will, especially with your ridiculous battery-powered world, okay? Why aren't these people talking about plants, nuclear energy? Why aren't they talking about it? It's like they act like that doesn't exist. It's like that is an option, motherfuckers. Like, it's ridiculous. And the fact that we're buying from our adversaries oil and whatnot, and we have to refine it in this country, so it's like such a extra process. It's absolutely absurd what is happening here. OPEC, if we had a good relationship with Saudi Arabia, this also would not be happening, by the way. But OPEC and Russia cutting production is a brilliant idea for them. Obviously, because the price goes up, they make more money. Simple. End of story. So of course they're going to do that. If we were energy independent like we were under Trump, holy shit, we wouldn't even have to worry about OPEC or Russia, and we could be supplying energy to our allies, cutting off Russia from a lot of things and OPEC from a lot of other countries too, and we could be supplying other people, which means it would be a national security thing, right? Yeah, get that. Energy runs countries. Energy actually helps national security. Energy actually prevents wars, okay? Meaning, if you're able to cut off Russia from supplying Europe, okay, different parts of Europe, and we're able to supply them that way, then that really cuts down on Russia's income, doesn't it? For them to continue to create their wonderful military bullshit to go into Ukraine. If a country is broke, they're more likely than not going to be invading or going into a war in general, period. Moving on. Student loans. Student loan payments will resume in October. I hadn't really thought about this situation after a multi-year hiatus granted during the COVID-19 pandemic. For millions of Americans, this means coming up with an average monthly payment of $200 to $300 per person, which, by the way, I don't like that phrasing. Coming up. You people have been paying this shit for probably years, okay? This is not a new payment. It just was on hiatus. And if you were smart, you would be preparing for this to end. And if you were smart, you would have, if possible, obviously not all that possible because of prices these days, but if all possible, been putting that money away in your savings or having some sort of something, especially with all the money coming out of this government going to people. Good God. It says, but the number could be higher, according to the Federal Reserve, which also student loan borrowers owe an average of less than $25,000 with a median balance between $20,000 and $25,000. Retailers, this is the part I didn't think about, including, I don't know why they're targeting these three companies, Target, Nike, and Under Armour, could take a hit, according to UBS analyst Jay Soul. Why he picked those three companies, again, no idea. A bigger percentage of customers are student loan borrowers. Not sure how they came up with that concept. Like, okay, is Target, Nike, and Under Armour obviously, not obviously, all of a sudden tracking their customers' debt somehow? I'd like to know that. The result could result in overall dip in retail sales and consumer spending in general. Duh. So anyway, long-term rates. Here we go. The benchmark 10-year Treasury hit 4.479 last week, a new 52-week high. The highest since October 2007. What happened in 2007 and 8? As tracked by Dow Jones Market Data Group, the 30-year yield rose to 4.550%, the highest since April 2011. Rising yields are pressuring U.S. stocks, which fell for the week, but remain higher on the year end. I think that's the end of this. Oh, wait. Government shutdown. Blah, blah, blah. Republican parties having issues with it. Government funding will run out September 30th, meaning federal workers will not get paid. And I think that's the end of this article, except for comments, which I'm sure are great. Hey, look, Bidenomics to blame for all of this. Yeah, no shit. I'm glad I'm not the only one. Bidenomics in action. Boy, I actually did name this video accurately. But beside the point, the government shutdown situation with the Republicans, if they are smart, these 5 holdouts that are whining about whatever they're whining about, need to stop. Just needs to fucking stop. McCarthy needs to take a concession, take out Ukraine funding, and put a different vote on it, which is he said he's gonna do. I don't know if he's done it yet. Obviously, nothing's happened, so I'm gonna have to say no. Because that is a big complaint for a lot of people, and I totally agree with that shit. Get that out of any type of continuing resolution, because they're obviously not going to get all these, I think it's 13 appropriations bills out by September 30th, which is in 5 days. So they're going to do a continuing resolution for like a month or two or some shit, and then go over all the appropriations bills. This is simple. Do not let the government shut down, because people don't know what that means. The American public, as I have said in the past, just like with this impeachment inquiry, I totally said the Democrats were going to spin it and misinform people, and the mainstream media were going to do the same thing, basically saying the Republicans are attempting to impeach Biden. No, that's not what a fucking impeachment inquiry is. The concept may be right, but you are totally misinterpreting and misunderstanding and totally informing the public. All it is opening up investigation. That's it. So it's the same situation here. Moving on. This part I didn't know. It says Trump appointed judge upholds Biden administration's ESG regulations. For those of you who don't follow that type of situation, the ESG regulations, something came out last year. It was supposed to start in January of this year. Basically, ESG regulations say that the fiduciaries and other retirement, I'm not sure what the other companies are considered, but other retirement shit that people do portfolios and stuff can or should, they are I don't know if they're incentivized, but it sure seems to be that way. But they are to take into consideration the climate change footprint that companies have before they invest in them. So, in other words, fossil fuel companies are obviously not a good thing to invest in, blah, blah, blah. So, it wouldn't fall under the ESG winner for these fiduciaries if they follow these regulations. So, a lot of states sued to get this paused, and it was paused until, what did it say? Last Thursday. So here we go. It says a federal judge in Texas ruled against a coalition of 26 states challenging a Biden administration rule allowing retirement plan managers, that's probably more the term I was looking for, to factor environmental and social issues into investment decisions. In a late ruling Thursday, Trump appointed judge. I hate how they tell who appointed a judge. I don't fucking care who appointed a judge, because as soon as you put Trump appointed, Biden appointed, Obama appointed, fucking Bush appointed, Clinton appointed, who cares? Who cares? It puts a spin on it. Anyway, Judge Matthew, I don't even want to attempt that last name, Kasmarki of the U.S. District Court of Northern District of Texas denied states' motion for summary judgment. The Republican-led states filed the lawsuit in January and argued the Department of Labor, DOL, rule unveiled months earlier violated a series of federal laws protecting Americans' retirement income and governing the federal government's rulemaking authority. Quote, the rule does not violate the Administrative Procedure Act, said the quote, in his 14-page ruling, while the court is not unsympathetic to the plaintiff's concerns over ESG investing trends, it need not condone ESG investing generally or ultimately agree with the rule to reach this conclusion. End quote. ESG is one of the reasons that Silicon Valley Bank went down. They invested in companies and shit they shouldn't have because of ESG thought process. Not because of this ruling, or this, not because of this lawmaking rule process that came out of DOL. It had to do with their thought process, and they went down the tank. I wish they probably didn't, but they should have quoted that as an example of a problem in this lawsuit. The decision also concluded the plaintiffs failed to prove the DOL's rules violated the Employee Retirement Income Securities Act, ERISA, of 1974. The law safeguards the retirement of 152 million U.S. workers, equivalent to more than 2/3 of the nation's adult population, and covers roughly $12 trillion in assets. In November, DOL unveiled the regulations, which ultimately went into effect January 30th. The rule opened the door for fiduciaries' so-called factor-in environmental, social, and governance (ESG) considerations into Americans' retirement accounts, an action the states argued could significantly harm the financial interests of the customers. No shit. After announcing the rule, the then Labor Secretary, Marty Walsh, said the move would, quote, help plan participants make the most of their retirement benefits, end quote. How so, Mr. Walsh? How so? DOL Assistant Secretary for Employee Benefits Security, Lisa Gomez, added the climate change and ESG factors were important for investors. On January 26, days before the rule was set to be implemented, the more than 24 states led by GOP Utah Attorney General Sean Reyes filed the lawsuit and asked the court for a preliminary injunction to prevent DOL from implementing the rule until the ruling had been issued on the case. And then it says the states noted ERISA requires retirement plan assets to be held for exclusive purpose of providing benefits to participants in the plan, and the fiduciaries must act solely in the interest of said participants. This next sentence. How this court ruled the way it did based on this next sentence, I don't know. Supreme Court has previously ruled that such, quote, benefits, end quote, are defined as financial benefits, end quote. The Biden administration is promoting its climate change agenda by putting everyday people's retirement, money at risk, Reyes said, who is the Attorney General of Utah. Americans are already suffering from the current economic downturn. Permitting asset managers to direct hardworking Americans' money into ESG investments puts trillions of dollars of retirement savings at risk in exchange for someone else's political agenda. We are acting with urgency on this case because this illegal rule is set to take effect next week. It must be stopped, which would be this week. says over the past few years, massive asset managers and financial institutions have increasingly focused on prioritizing ESG factors when making key investment decisions. They have particularly set their sight on investing in companies based on the company's efforts to combat climate change and curb their carbon footprint. And it says companies like BlackRock, State Street, Vanguard, both BlackRock and Vanguard have actually started to walk away from this. And I thought this was over, which is why I did not know this happened. Which collectively manage trillions of dollars in assets, have taken lead roles in the ESG movement. In response to growing movement, Republican state attorney generals and financial officers have fought back, canceling contracts with firms and threatening legal action over how they handle customers' investments. The states that were part of this are Utah, Alabama, Alaska, Arkansas, Florida, Georgia, Idaho, Indiana, Iowa, Kansas, Kentucky, Louisiana, Mississippi, Missouri, Montana, Nebraska, New Hampshire, North Dakota, Ohio, South Carolina, Tennessee, Texas, Virginia, West Virginia, and Wyoming as the plaintiffs were listed challenging the DOL ESG rule. So I didn't know that came out. So for any of you who are interested in that type of shit, there you go. That's terrifying that that's the situation there. But anyway, that's Bidenomics at its best. There's so much other shit that could be said. Him touting that he's brought back so many jobs, like more jobs than any president in history. Well, no shit. Everybody was laid off, sitting on their ass at home because everything was closed, or people lost their jobs or their businesses during COVID. All that happened were people are going back to work. That's all that's happening. He didn't create anything. I would love to see the numbers of creation, meaning brand new, never existed before, and, I don't know, people going back to work. Okay? And even that portion of creating a new business or whatever, people may be reopening their business, and they may even be considering that into the equation. This guy is such a liar. And he says that he's actually brought down the deficit. What? Are you serious? Anyone who believes that is a total moron. This guy has added trillions, like $4 trillion to the debt already, because of what he's been spending. What he claims, I'll tell you this right now. This is what he claims. He claims he's lowered the deficit because, he never explains this part, he ended, meaning did not renew or reauthorize, he allowed to sunset the COVID money that Trump had allowed to go through Congress that was supporting all these programs such as the child tax credit and a few other things to expire. So if you take that amount of money that was being put into the economy from the federal government and stop it, yeah, you're not adding to the goddamn debt. But that is not reducing the debt. That is preventing more debt from going on the books of something a prior administration had fucking authorized. You dumb morons. I cannot stand how ignorant the population is, which is why I like to do this video, because it gives you kind of a well-rounded factual environment of what's going on right now. So anyone who wants to bet against me regarding Biden dipping into the oil reserves before December 31st, 2023 at midnight, let me know. I'd love your $20, and I look forward to your $20 because I know you're watching this video. This is Are You Ready For It? Take care, guys. Have a great day.